In September 2000, 22-year-old Paul Pierce was a rising star in the NBA, entering his third season with the Boston Celtics. Right before the season started, he was having a night out with his teammates when one bad decision turned him having a fun night at the club into him fighting for his life in the hospital. It didn't look good for Pierce, and the Celtics almost lost their third star in 2 decades, but to everyone's surprise, not only did he survive, but he came back better than ever. Here's a story of how ego and pride put an athlete in danger, and how Paul Pierce had a vicious attack on his life, but managed to make one of the biggest comebacks of all time.
Paul Pierce had been stabbed several times during an altercation inside the nightclub.
When you young, black, and rich in America, you a target.
I felt like Paul was the aggressor, and I think Paul knows that.
I was a product of some hate.
If he wasn't being aggressive with, the female at the time, none of that would have happened.
Yeah, it was traumatizing for me for a minute because I hated to be around crowds after that. It traumatized me.
Yeah.
I'm stressed.
And to me, Paul Pierce is a dog because he came back and played the whole season. After that, and had a great season.
And didn't miss a game.
Didn't miss a game, man. So, in my eyes, he's a fucking warrior.
Yeah, he's the truth. He's the truth. He's the truth. He's the truth.
Paul Pierce was born in Oakland, California on October 13, 1977, then moved to the east side of Los Angeles when he was 10 years old before moving to Inglewood, California a year later. Ironically, he was a huge Laker fan growing up and said that he even used to hate the Celtics.
Yeah, we hated Boston.
Hated Boston.
We hated Boston.
Yeah.
I'm a Laker fan.
The Celtics I hated growing up.
He would start his basketball career at Inglewood High School, actually being cut from the varsity team both his freshman and sophomore years. Him being cut made him spend extra time in the gym, and by his junior year, he was the best player on the team. His senior year, he averaged 27 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists, playing his way onto the 1995 McDonald's All-American team with future NBA stars Vince Carter, Stephon Marbury, and his future teammate, Kevin Garnett. He would commit to the University of Kansas where, in his 3 years there, he would become a 2-time conference tournament MVP and an All-American before entering the NBA draft. The Celtics would take him with the 10th overall pick in the 1998 draft, and in his first 2 years, he became the star that the Celtics had needed. The Celtics had already been having a rough and unlucky decade. In 1986, they drafted Len Bias, who was supposed to be one of the next elite players in the NBA, but he passed away 2 days later due to an overdose. The next year, the Celtics would draft a player named Reggie Lewis in the 1987 draft. Reggie became an all-star and the Celtics' best player before 1993, when during practice in the offseason, he would pass away after suffering from a sudden cardiac arrest right on the court. After losing 2 of the stars that were supposed to carry the torch after the Bird and McHale era, the Celtics struck gold when Paul Pierce slid to them in the draft. Things were looking bright for the young forward, but going into his 3rd season, the Celtics almost lost Pierce as well, in a tragic event that would stun the city of Boston and make headlines everywhere. On the night of September 24, 2000, a 22-year-old Paul Pierce was on a night out in Boston with teammate Tony Petit and his brother Derek Petit playing pool when they left, and a little after 1 a.m., they ended up stopping at the Buzz nightclub in the Theater District where there was an after party for a fashion show. Once they got in the club, Pierce separated from the Petit brothers and went to do his own thing. Minutes later, at around 1:30 p.m., he went to go talk to a group of 3 women when a man, who was said to be the cousin of one of the women, approached Pierce, and they briefly exchanged words before the man punched him in the face. Almost immediately, several men jumped in to help attack Pierce, hitting him over the head with a bottle, punching him in his back, neck, and his abdomen. Once the dust settled, Pierce stood up, and there was blood all over him, and his jacket was all cut up. Turns out that those punches were more than just regular punches. He was being hit with knives. The attackers fled the club, and the Petit brothers rushed Pierce to the Tufts Medical Center, which luckily for him was only 3 minutes away from the Buzz Club. When he got to the hospital, doctors discovered that he had 11 stab wounds on his abdomen and his back, and he had to undergo emergency lung surgery. The doctors would say that one of his wounds was 7 inches deep, and had it been just 1 inch in any other direction, it could have been fatal.
The incredible route that a knife took to slip right past the spleen, puncture a diaphragm, puncture a lung, miss the heart. In the abdominal cavity, it came within 1 inch of his spleen and within 1 inch of his liver. He
also had to get plastic surgery to heal a severe gash going from the corner of his eye to his forehead from getting hit over the head with the bottle. Despite all these injuries, 3 days later, he left the hospital on his own and addressed the media with a smile on his face and said how he can't wait to join his teammates, appearing to be in good spirits.
I can't wait to get back out on the basketball court, join my Celtic teammates, and hopefully a speedy recovery and get out there as soon as possible.
Although Paul appeared to be okay, the hunt would begin for who did this to him and why.
While sources say Pierce's attacker is an associate of Made Men, the rap group is denying any involvement in the stabbing.
The word was it was Made Man and Benzino.
The day before Paul came out and spoke with the news, Boston police issued warrants for 3 men, William Ragland, aka Roscoe, Trevor Watson, and Anthony Hurston, with Ragland being identified as the man who started the whole fight. He and Watson allegedly both had knives, and Hurston was the one that struck Pierce over the head with the bottle. All 3 were charged with assault and battery with a deadly weapon. These 3 men had strong connections to the Made Men, a rap group out of Boston. The Made Men were founded by Raymond Scott, better known as Benzino, who was a rapper and co-founder of the Source magazine, which was very popular in the 90s. And he's also the father of the artist Coi Leray. Benzino's Made Men group was well known in the city of Boston, but it wasn't just for their music. They were known for having multiple run-ins with law enforcement throughout the 90s, with police saying that, quote, violence just followed those guys around like glue. 5 months prior to the Paul Pierce incident, in April 2000, the Made Men just had a separate melee involving the rapper DMX at a concert where 5 different people had been stabbed. They couldn't keep themselves out of the eye of the law, but they were still the biggest rap group out of Boston, even shooting a music video for their song Holla Boston right on the Celtics' home court. This would lead one to believe that they were big Celtics fans and the Celtics players were off limits, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Now, what really happened that night? After Pierce was ambushed, reports came out about a motive, saying that Ragland started the fight after Pierce tried to have a conversation with his female cousin, which doesn't make sense when you first hear it, but the real reason tells a slightly different story. According to Benzino, who was there that night, the woman wasn't Ragland's cousin, but it was in fact his significant other, and Paul was trying to flirt with her. He paints a picture of an arrogant basketball player who came to the club thinking he could have any woman he wanted in there, not caring who she belonged to. Ragland felt disrespected and chaos ensued.
Paul was getting real aggressive with, one of the wise guy's girls. And he told him to chill. And I guess Paul didn't chill. And he was being real aggressive with his girl. The rest is history. Now,
What you mean by aggressive?
Like trying to holler at her. Trying just, what I'm saying? After somebody like, yo, that's my girl or whatever. And then, words fly. It happens so much. Everybody by me talking this can see this. This happens all the time. You have your girl with you, some getting agree, yo, homie, she's with me. You're supposed to only take one time. The rule is you're supposed to take one time. And if you didn't know, that's your time to chill. If you still saying something after that, then you've died from that shit. Like graveyards, jails are full of over shit like that. So this ain't nothing new.
Now, witnesses did mention that Ragland was standing right there when Paul approached the women, and Pierce himself even said that when he approached the women, it was 3 women and 1 guy there.
The only thing I really remember was 3 girls and 1 guy. Mm-hmm. And it was just like a situation where I wasn't disrespectful. Mm-hmm. I never want to disrespect somebody that in a town where I don't know.
You don't really know what's going on.
Pierce also admits that the man told him not to speak to the woman, but he says the woman essentially didn't claim the guy.
And so it was a night when I went in Buzz Club, and I caught myself talking to some young ladies. I'm single at the time. Next thing I know, one of the young ladies, I don't know if it's her dude, I don't know what. Next thing I know, a guy approached me like, that's like, you don't talk to her. And I'm like, what? And she like I don't really mess with dude. Next thing you know, I'm in a tussle with him.
Now, what was said immediately after that is unknown because Pierce never really specifies what was said.
I guess it went from talking to some girls to an argument pursuing, and then next thing you know, I'm feeling attacked. I was in the club, and one thing led to another, and it happened so fast. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't even remember the exact detail of it. Like, You know, I'm talking to a chick and everything, and then some dude come up. Next thing you know, I'm in a squabble, you know, with like 2 or 3 different dudes getting stabbed on the ground.
Maybe he kept trying to talk to her because she didn't claim the guy, or maybe Ragland just got aggressive because, after all, allegedly, there's a well-known millionaire trying to take his woman from right under his arm. Regardless, Pierce got into a tussle with Ragland, who clearly didn't come to the club by himself, so his friends came over and helped him attack Pierce. Pierce, who was 6'7" and 220 pounds, was tough for them to take down, and Ragland pulled out a knife and began striking Pierce in the chest. Behind him was Trevor Watson, who also pulled out a knife and began piercing Paul in the back. Paul managed to put up a good fight, which is either what saved his life or caused the assailants to feel like they needed lethal force, but either way, when they were done, Pierce was still conscious, and when he stood up and the lights came on, everyone saw how tall he was, and that's when everyone in the club realized that this wasn't a random person that was attacked. It was a superstar of the Boston Celtics, Paul Pierce.
We walk in as a group, and I tell off.
You notice that the Celtics in it because everybody is tall as you know what I'm saying? I remember Tony Battie was in there.
It went from talking to some girls to an argument pursuing, and then next thing you know, I'm feeling attacked.
A fight jumped off, and yeah, I seen dudes hopping over the bar, grabbing bottles, and it just turned into a big crazy situation.
Yeah.
It looked like one guy right here.
Yeah.
But like after it was all said and done, it was like 3 or 4 guys, and I'm a big dude.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you ain't gonna just take me down.
Right.
Paul Pierce was throwing hands that night. Yeah. He didn't just get stabbed like go ahead and stab me.
Yeah.
He was swinging.
Yeah.
And dudes really didn't know it was Paul Pierce until after.
No other Celtics went over there to help Paul that night. And there was a few of them in there. Nobody went over there to help him.
He wasn't going down. He was throwing hands.
Going down.
Yeah.
Anybody tell you he was going down the line? He was throwing hands.
Yeah. So
if there was no knives involved, he would have a couple of people up, quite frankly.
You know, the reports that came out from the people was like, man, if you didn't fight for your life, you would have been dead. It was like you was fighting, but they was jumping on you and everything, but you was still fighting back and everything.
The thing about it was, I'm standing feet away watching, and I didn't know it was Paul. And I don't got to say this to lie or to oppress. If I knew that was Paul, I would have ran over there and stopped that. Not just being a big Celtics fan, but I knew the ramifications if that was Paul. I seen it, and I just didn't know who the fuck it was. I knew that he was tall. I just didn't know. I watched him. He was at Kansas. It just didn't look the same. We in a dark-ass nightclub.
You know, it was like you ever seen the Charlie Brown fighting when the dude's fighting and it's just dirt.
Yeah.
And then the dirt clears and then you can see everybody. It was kind of like that. Like you couldn't really see it was Paul Pierce. You just seen a bunch of rumbling. You knew he was. You seen arms and shit like that. But then when it was over and he stood up, he was taller than everybody. So the dude was like, "That's Paul Pierce."
I don't know. It happened so fast, man.
That's how I normally.
It happened so fast. I don't even know how I got into it. It's just one dude right here. The next thing I know, the story come out, I was fighting with 3 guys. You know, once it was all over with, it's over, I'm standing up. I didn't even know I was being stabbed.
After the melee, nobody that was at the club came forward with any information. There were whispers that it was the made men, but nobody came forward as a witness at first. After all, according to Benzino, brutally attacking athletes over women was their MO.
When athletes come to Boston, it's not the first time it happened. Like Mo Vaughn, you remember Mo Vaughn? Mo Vaughn was the big first baseman for the Red Sox. So Mo Vaughn is hollering at Apple's girl, my man Apple Street. Mo Vaughn catches a glass ashtray to the face at the Roxy nightclub. Lawyer Malloy. Lawyer Malloy's with one of my guy's baby mothers. My man Merrill jumps in the motherfucking limousine where Lawyer's out at the club and pulls out a 4/5 for him. You see what I'm saying? Like, you see the pattern?
Yeah.
While Pierce was in the hospital bed, allegedly, the police were showing him a lineup of photos and they were begging him to identify Benzino as the person who was responsible, which he didn't do. Pierce, however, did tell the police that he recognized 3 other men in the photo lineup, and that would be William Ragland, Trevor Watson, and Anthony Hurston. Hours later, police would receive a call that would result in a major breakthrough in the case. Crystal Bostic, a student at Rhode Island College, located in Providence, Rhode Island, which is about an hour away from the Buzz Club, was in her criminal justice class when she mentioned to her class that she was at the club when Paul Pierce was attacked and saw the whole thing. Her professor then told the Providence police, who would then interview Crystal, and she would tell them that she witnessed the attack and a man that she knew as Roscoe, which was William Ragland's nickname, was one of the attackers. Here is where it was discovered that Crystal was one of the 3 women that Pierce had approached. The Providence police officer would call Boston detective Paul Barnacle, who was working on the case, and he would then meet Crystal at the Providence police headquarters, where she not only told him about the attack, she even drew the knife that Ragland used to attack Pierce with. She then pointed out Trevor Watson as also being one of the attackers, and adding that he had a knife as well that was attached to brass knuckles. Her original testimony that she gave to detectives was enough for the police to arrest the 3 men, and I want you guys to remember what she said because we're going to come back to this, but for now, the attackers were off the streets and the trial was set to begin in 2002. On October 3rd, 2000, 8 days after he was viciously attacked, Paul Pierce returned to the Celtics ready to practice. After dealing with such a brutal and traumatic event, people weren't even sure if Pierce would play basketball ever again, but he actually came back more focused than ever. After this incident, he decided that he wasn't going to go out anymore and channeled all of his energy onto the basketball court. The Celtics head coach at the time, Rick Pitino, told Pierce that if he feels uncomfortable at all being in Boston, that he would trade him immediately, but Pierce decided to stay put.
You don't know what's going through his mind. Is there somebody in the stands out to get me? I told Paul if he ever has any fears, I'll trade him.
I remember being at his house and people calling like saying it wasn't over. You know what I mean? And he was like, nah. He called. I remember him calling Dave like, nah, I'm not. I don't want to be traded. I'm gonna stay right here. I'm gonna go face to face with this NBA. I'm gonna be back next year on time, and I'm gonna get busy.
Although he chose to stay in Boston, Paul felt a level of stress and paranoia that only the basketball court could heal.
It was so bad that I couldn't even sleep. I wake up in the middle of the night. People don't this is a story a lot of people don't know. I had to have a 24-hour police surveillance in my house. That's how paranoid I was. Sit outside. And all I did was go to the gym and home for a good 2-year stretch, man. I was just it changes you, dude. You don't know where to go. You don't know who to look at. You don't know. You on your toes. You really on your toes.
Something like that maybe had to happen. Maybe God was sending a message to where look, we need to refocus, get back in the gym. And I really think from that point on, it elevated my game from that point on.
All the time that he had spent on the court after the incident paid off big time for Paul. Not only was Pierce ready for the start of the season, which was just a month after, but he actually managed to be the only Celtics player that played all 82 games on the season. All this while averaging career highs in points, rebounds, and assists. He had 15 30-point games and 8 40-point games. One of those 40-point games was when he went back to his hometown when he scored 42 points against the defending champion Los Angeles Lakers that were led by Kobe and Shaq. According to Pierce, that was his best game of his career up to that point. He played so well that Shaq had to tell reporters that Paul Pierce was, quote, the truth, and thus his new nickname was born.
Write this down. Paul Pierce is the mother truth.
His next season was even better, again playing all 82 games and again getting career highs all across the board. Pierce was on another level. He carried his team to the playoffs, which was the Celtics' first playoff appearance since 1992. They went all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals before losing to the New Jersey Nets. Through all his personal success, Pierce was understandably dealing with a level of trauma that he was having trouble getting over.
It was traumatizing for me for a minute because I hated to be around crowds after that. It traumatized me. I didn't want to be around no crowds. So now I ain't going to no clubs. I don't want nobody near me. I got security. Don't even come near me. I'm stressed.
How did you manage to stay in Boston another 10 years after that? How were you able to get back to some sense of normalcy in that city?
It took a while, but I surrounded myself with some family and friends because immediately I moved out 2 of my cousins who are the same age as me, 2 of my best friends who I grew up with, and I moved into Boston with me. So I had family around me at all times. But it took some years, man. It took some years. Even going to the restaurant, dude, I had security. I'm over here seeing who know my car. I got them standing outside, went inside. And it took some years for me to really start getting back to normal, because it got to the point I get real anxious when I got in the crowd. I couldn't do the season tickets holder stuff with the crowd of people, appearances I wasn't doing.
His status as a superstar, not only on the team, but in the whole league, was solidified. But after the season, in September 2002, 2 years after he was attacked in the club, he had to relive his traumatic situation when he was set to testify in the trial of his attempted murder. On September 17, 2002, the trial of the men accused of attacking Pierce would begin. The defense team's main argument was that there were so many people in the club that night and so many people involved in the fight that it was hard to actually identify who really attacked Pierce. They felt that because of Paul's status, the Boston Police Department was in a rush to just put anybody in jail. For some reason, Reverend Al Sharpton even came out and accused the police of profiling the made men.
You do not grab anyone around because they fit a certain stereotype or certain profile and use the hysteria of an outrageous act to pinpoint and prosecute people based on their profile rather than evidence.
In the trial, identifying who actually stabbed Pierce was the biggest challenge. It was already established that William Ragland was the main attacker, but the prosecution didn't have many people who saw him or Trevor Watson holding a knife. In 2000, right after the attack, a witness named Regina Henderson told the grand jury that she saw Ragland washing the blood off his hands when the fight was over, but she didn't see a knife in his hand. She's also the one that originally identified Anthony Hurston, the man accused of hitting Pierce with the bottle. At trial, however, she changed her mind and said that she didn't see Hurston there. This was important because Hurston was later acquitted of all charges. That brought the suspect list from 3 to 2, William Ragland and Trevor Watson. The only person to say they saw Watson and Ragland with knives was Crystal Bostic, who was supposed to be the star witness of the case. Remember, she was the one that spoke to Providence police and even drew a picture of the knife that she saw Ragland with that night. Well, now it's 2 years later and we're at trial and she doesn't want to answer any questions. The judge had to warn her that she'll be held in contempt of court, and he even threatened to give her 3 months of jail time, and she fainted right in the courtroom. The next day, she answered the questions, but her entire story changed. They even brought up her previous statements to try to use them against her, but everything changed. She said regardless of what she said the first time, she didn't see either of the 2 men with knives. Prosecution began to suspect that there may have been some witness intimidation going on because she's the second witness to change her story, but as obvious as they may think it was, they couldn't prove it. The last person who had to testify was Paul Pierce himself. Benzino, the leader of the Made Men, has told the story multiple times about how Pierce got on the stand and pointed the 3 men out, quote, telling on them, leading to them getting jail time.
Paul took the stand. Like, Paul pointed out.
Word.
I don't know, but he took the stand, pointed out, and got 20 years over that.
I didn't know all that.
And Paul Pierce picked him out. He said those are the ones who stabbed him and punched him.
Wow. Wow. So he told and everything.
He told. When they said, "Do you see that did that?" Paul pointed. Yes, he was right there.
If you look at the footage, that's actually not true at all.
You didn't see anybody with cornrows, is that right?
I don't remember.
You didn't see any bald-headed guy, right?
I don't remember.
And you didn't see anyone with real short hair, correct?
I can't remember. I cannot tell if he was the person standing next to the pool table that I had initial confrontation with.
Pierce didn't bother to identify any of the 3 men in court, and William Ragland and Trevor Watson were both acquitted on attempted murder charges. Ragland, who was the initial aggressor, was charged with assault with a dangerous weapon and sentenced to 7 to 10 years, and Watson was charged with assault and battery and sentenced to 1 year. I think Pierce not testifying against them in court was just a matter of him being done with the whole situation. The trial was 2 years later, he just signed a major contract extension, and he just had the 2 best seasons of his career, and he was fully healed, and I believe he was just over it all and wanted to move past it. Because of the era that this happened, this event almost seemed to be swept under the rug. Imagine if this happened to one of today's superstars. The news would be everywhere. Pierce would go on to become a Celtics legend, being loved by the city of Boston, and it was almost all taken away because of such a minor situation. People see Paul Pierce on TV today, and they don't realize what he's done and what he's been through, but not only was he a superstar, but he was solidified as a true warrior.